प्रसार भारती अभिलेखागार की प्रस्तुति सदाबहार सुनहरे दौर का अनमोल खजाना।
We are now in the midst of the Film City complex in Mumbai. 75 years ago, Hollywood in Los Angeles would have looked something like this. The cinema of the 20s in Hollywood saw some major changes taking place. Emerging out of the First World War, film producers felt the urgent need to consolidate every aspect of filmmaking, from script writing to building their own cinema halls. Economy of production and survival of the fittest was the name of the game. So professionally organized studios emerged in a big way. And what with audiences wanting the best of entertainment, the cult of the star system established itself in the most unambiguous manner. In this episode, we shall look at one genre in which the filmmaker and the film star synthesize in the most comfortable manner. This is the genre of the comic cinema, the comedians and their hilarious movies. The names that come to our mind immediately are Charles Chaplin, the Marx Brothers, Buster Keaton. But let's first look at the guru of all the comedians. His name was Max Linder. And in the streets of Paris, where he enacted his comedies, his presence was enough to cause a lot of havoc. To emphasize his vulnerability, Max Linder developed his silk-hatted screen persona and portrayed that the higher the young man went, the harder was the fall. Very soon, he added his own name to the film titles, making him the first movie performer to be an attraction in his own right. The first on the list of Max Linder's admirers was Max Sennett. In 1912, he founded the Keystone Studios and produced thousands of one- and two-reelers to introduce a new genre called the slapstick comedy. The roar of laughter that it generated could bring down a whole studio floor. He used anything, the circus, the vaudeville, the pantomime, anything that could generate laughter in a cinematic way. His films were a world of inspired mayhem, of chases, of cars that could pass through brick walls, of parties where jealous lovers chase each other through rip-away doors. His films were true images of a surreal world trapped in a bizarre anarchic state. Unlike his contemporaries, Max Sennett was not the one to jealously guard his secrets and amass riches. He genuinely encouraged other talented comedians to come in and contribute their own ideas in his own Keystone Studios. The list of artists who have emerged out of this studio read like a veritable who's who of the world of comedy. Sennett discovered and produced the first films of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harry Langdon, Fatty Arbuckle. The stars who began their career here were Gloria Swanson, Carole Lombard, W.C. Fields, Mabel Normand, and many others. The legend of Max Sennett was carried forward gloriously by the amazing Charlie Chaplin. It was in the Keystone Studios that he evolved the famous baggy pant, bowler hat, and the walking stick, an icon that he was going to refine to its subtlest variation. After he left the Keystone Studios, Chaplin joined the SNA studios, where the budgets were higher and he could make his immortal satires like the immigrant, the tramp, and the pawnbroker.
The characters became very popular because uh, people, they were the ones who were reaching the largest number of viewers. And the star image, I would say, was built by a person like Chaplin. You know, for the first time we realized there is a man, there is a face whom we can identify, and the type of characters which he played, not only making you laugh, but after the laughter is over, you think it over. And in those small moments, you find out what tremendous ideas and values of life and interpersonal relationship he brings into his so-called outward gestures of comic movements and expressions. So that is something which kept on with the layman, with the ordinary people, and they found he is the kind of, you know, embodiment of the right human being.
The hallmark of Chaplin's films was his deep sympathy for his underprivileged, combined with a macabrish mocking of the aristocracy. And amidst all the confusion that would be caused entirely by Chaplin, he would remain absolutely unperturbed. By 1917, within just 3 years after his debut, Charles Chaplin was the hottest selling star in Hollywood. Honestly, Chaplin's films need very little interpretation. If only one could observe the way Chaplin could enrich every second of his film with tiny gestures like the flick of the cement in the policeman's eyes here. One has to keep one's eyes and one's heart open to receive the innumerable nuances that each of his gags are embellished with. Watching a film like The Kid, we realize that Chaplin is not all slapstick. He is as sentimental as he is bizarrely comic, as attached to his people around as much as he is completely capable of being the lonely man, always isolated. And then there are Chaplin's dream worlds. They remain the only place where he is not hounded by the ever suspicious policeman, where his tramp status is elevated and he is in total harmony with the world around. The image of the tramp coincides very well with the harsh economic circumstances of new-founded urban centers in America. While the difficulties of daily life identified the viewers and the tramp, the comic presentation altered that state and elevated the viewer to a nobler level. In 1923, Chaplin set up America's most powerful distribution company called the United Artists. It was formed along with D.W. Griffith, Douglas Fairbanks, and Mary Pickford. In 1925, Chaplin set the world ablaze with a powerful epic on the foolish search for gold, which influenced every American directly or indirectly at the same time. This scathing attack was called the Gold Rush, and it set every member of the audience introspecting while they rolled over their seats in laughter at the same time. This film is set against the tragic Klondike Gold Rush of 1898, and Chaplin decides to take all the hardships there to a level of high comedy. Chaplin's perspective to a grim reality is indeed unique. He realized the need to look at the essence of the problem by abstracting them through gestures and mime. This way, the viewer could empathize easily with the situation and also interiorize the irrational behavior of certain societies at certain times. As usual, what is foregrounded is a superlative performance with a timing and rhythm no actor has ever been able to achieve. His streak of fantasy continues as he imagines entertaining four beautiful girls to the most brilliant pantomime of a ballet that has ever been done on the screen. Chaplin's stardom was so powerful that it nearly eclipsed his extremely talented contemporary, Buster Keaton. While Chaplin was concerned with heightening of the dramatic action in his films, Buster Keaton was concerned with the intense realism of his drama that was to unfold on the screen. In this film, he plays the character of Johnny Gray, who runs a locomotive called the General during the Great Civil War. Unfortunately, his train is hijacked by Union spies along with his fiancée. Johnny now single-handedly chases, gets back the train and his lover with perfect timing and all his catastrophic gags. Keaton is usually confronted with unsurmountable problems, often involving machines and objects rather than humans. It is a classical absurdist situation, and the humor arises from the hero's spirited attempts, and ultimately, for totally arbitrary reasons, he somehow succeeds. But it was in 1927, with his film called The General, that Buster Keaton demonstrated his supreme ability to use the actor's body, the rhythm of the film flow, and the variety of gags that go to enrich the film in the most credible and creative manner. Like Chaplin, Keaton knew that great comedy always exists close to the brink of tragedy. But sentimentality never played an important part in Keaton's work. Yet, like Chaplin, Keaton is a magnificently subtle actor. His great stone face was actually capable of suggesting a vast range of emotions, and there was very little that he could not express with his body. Much has been written about Keaton and his trajectory gags, the way he propels himself through a series of dramatically connected sight gags. And all this happens with a straight-faced, unmoved Buster Keaton. The reaction was left to the audience. Another comedian who touched the hearts of all Americans was Harold Lloyd. He began his career in 1917 at just $3 a week. He developed his personality as the mild-mannered boy next door, with horn-rimmed glasses and ever eager to be of service to people around him. But when he did start his service, it was utter chaos everywhere. Harold Lloyd worked only as an actor, and his comedy of thrills is amply demonstrated in this film made in 1923, where he scales the sheer walls of a 12-story building with no devices, and finally hangs on to the hands of a large clock right above the perils of a rushing traffic in the street below. As a slam-bang razzle-dazzle acrobat, he had no equals in his days. The producer of many of Harold Lloyd's films was a man called Hal Roach, and he was also to introduce the world's most famous comic duo, the inimitable Laurel and Hardy. This fabulous duo came from the theatre and mastered the art of packing a lot of trouble and confusion into every film. I am sure most of you would have seen their innumerable hits. Films like Saps at Sea, Blockheads, Chumps at Oxford, etc., etc. The films of Laurel and Hardy were always based on a structural logic, where a single flawed incident would progressively multiply into a catastrophe. In Saps at Sea, for example, it is Laurel and his famous trumpet. What the duo also mastered was complete economy in props and actions. They refined the art of repetition, of continuing a gesture over and over again, and yet each time it looked different from the previous one. A kind of monotonous circularity is expressed in their actions, and after a while it grows into the viewer. And soon they are drawn into complete participation. By the late 40s, when the mega studios took over, there was just no place for the simple jokes of Laurel and Hardy. They experimented everywhere, moving from one studio to another. But it only got more frustrating as there were far too many bosses and interferences. Strangely, they made their last film way out in France, and it was a film called Robinson Crusoe Land. This production was so haphazard that it was one mess that they could never get out of. They decided to retire and battle their poor health all alone, while they watched the world being invaded by a form called the sitcom. This was the impact of a medium called television, and the duo were not going to be part of it. But we shall meet again next time. Goodbye.